unbelievable.
We are live now.
Oh, right, okay. I'm glad you told me.
Thank you very much for the patience on the technology, confusion. We appreciate that you took your time to join us, and it's always a pleasure to having a chat with you.
It's so weird to be with you and we're not just sitting having a drink in Glasgow, isn't it? I think of you as a Glasgow Scottish guy who I just go drinking with. It's weird that you live in this other country. You know?
I know it's early for me to have a beer, but
nice.
it's water, but the glass is still in the roots.
If I know you, that's probably straight vodka. That's straight vodka.
Yeah, I can just say that. It's not, but I could say that. So how are you doing? How are you enjoying the quarantine? Are you enjoying? I mean, you're making a good use of it.
Do you know the nice thing about being a creator, whether you're an artist, a writer, letter, or colorer, we work from home anyway, so this is kind of like what we do. And the one upside of this is that we have so much time to focus on work that we're catching up on all our deadlines. It's the big secret of all the comic pros, isn't it? That we're always behind. And now we're actually about 6 weeks ahead. I took last week off because I was doing so well deadline-wise. And then I homeschooled the kids for a week. And it was a nightmare. And I was like counting the days to get back to work again. It was so hard.
Yeah, I confess that I've been struggling a bit on the latest weeks. It's been hard to, concentrate and, just get in that mood where you're fully drawing and concentrate. It's been very hard. But on the first weeks, I was so productive too. I mean, it was super good. And then I finished an issue and starting a new one. This gap kind of tricked me into, focus on other stuff, which was complicated. But yeah, you're doing. You're just Netflix now, right? You're fully doing Netflix. And how did this change you creatively? There's any difference on the way you used to make creator-owned comics before Netflix and now? Or you're still like in the same mood, same mindset?
Well, it's a very interesting question because I think what Netflix did was they realized that something cool was going on and they didn't want to mess with it. So they didn't want me to feel, oh yeah, you're just part of a big structure and, we want to destroy you, everything that made you do what you do, So their thing was like, how do we make your life as much like what it was before, but better, So there was lots of meetings about it and basically they just let me crack on with it. On the comic book side of things, certainly anyway. They just leave me to my own devices. But there is an amazing thing. It's kind of like having Green Lantern's ring or something like that. Just every now and then you remember you have like the ultimate power source in the world if you need it, So if you need a lawyer to check something, you can call someone at 3 a.m. and someone will take that call and check it for you and get back to you within 5 minutes, So it's amazing. It's all the advantages of being a freelancer, but having one of the world's biggest companies behind you, whenever you want to do something. So if you want an interview with something to promote something, whatever, they can set it up in 10 seconds somewhere. And I mean, so it's wonderful. It's actually, it's the closest I've ever come to a real job. Being an executive at Netflix is like the first time I was 19. I've always been a freelancer. To actually have somewhere, I thought, I wonder how this is going to go. But I really like the guys. And I think that makes a difference. Like, if you enjoy getting into a meeting, you'll get the best work out of people.
And you feel like because you have always had this connection with movies and you always had your things adapted, and you're very successful. This is a common question people ask me, and I really don't know how to answer. But when you come up with an idea for a comic book, you always foresee how it could be adapted, or if that could become something else other than just a comic book, or not really?
No. I mean, I just see them as stories. To me, they're just stories. And it's different now because what I do is I create them as movies and television shows first now. So ever since the Netflix deal, after we sold the company, then I took this separate job, to come in for years and work at Netflix. And what I do is I create something in-house, and maybe I do 7 a year, and then 4 of them I then turn into comics as well, and not because Netflix especially want that, it's just because I love doing comics. So when I signed up with them, I said, look, I love, this is what I do, this is, I don't want to disappear for 7, 10 years, or whatever, and not be in the comic market, because this is my real life, And so they were really good about it, and they said, look, if you're going to do comics of these ideas that you're doing, there has to be the best artists in the world. So it's guys like you, Olivier Coipel, like really great people, Eric Canet and everything, amazing artists coming in. But I never actually think of them as a comic first, or a movie first, or a TV show, because to me it's just a story has a beginning, middle, and an end. And there's a different discipline you use when you bring it to life as a comic as you do from a movie, but it's still essentially the same thing. And it's funny, a lot of people say, oh yeah, do you just write a comic as a movie? There's no formula for it. It means so many different things. If you think about it, Ghost World is completely different from 300, which is completely different from Spider-Man, And all these things are movies, and they're also comic books, but fundamentally what they are is stories just being told by different people.
Right, that makes sense, yeah. And you at Netflix now, you don't have like this kind of orientation from the company, like you have to do something that will become a movie, or you keep the track on the same idea of just creating stories and whatever it becomes.
Yeah, I mean, any crazy idea. That's what I love about Netflix, is that, to put it in perspective, that Warner Brothers or Paramount or anyone maybe do about 30 hours of original movie material a year, and Netflix last year did 1,500, and it's going up all the time. So there's an endless appetite, endless budget, endless appetite for material, and that material can't be two things the same. The whole point of Netflix is that you should scroll through for a little while to find out what you want. Because if you like everything, then they've failed. It's a really interesting way of looking at it, because the whole point of Netflix is it should be like a bookstore, that you should browse and find something that you love. And if you're into some really obscure thing, it will probably be there. If your taste is in this particular direction, it should be there. But it shouldn't be something for everyone. It should be lots of different products that something catches your eye, and that's for you. And that's what I love, because it means you can do anything. If I want to do like a Chinese ghost story set in the 7th century, I could do that. If I want to do a sci-fi thing in the 25th century, I can do that, and I love that.
Yeah, you since when do you have did you develop the taste for comics and creating your own stories? When did it start?
Well, probably the same as you. Like, I can't remember not doing it. And what's weird is I find it's like finding hieroglyphics, in a pyramid. I find things I didn't even know existed from when I was 4, and it's drawings that I can't remember doing. And I can, like, my brothers keep a lot of these things, so then I see them whenever they're moving house or something. I maybe help them move house, and then we find these folders from the 70s when I was a little kid, and it's maybe a drawing of Cyclops blasting Superman while Superman's using his heat vision on Cyclops, something. And I don't remember drawing that, but there it is in front of me, So like, I think it must be like a footballer or a priest or something, something that's just a vocation that you can't imagine never doing this. Like, we'll never retire. If you think about it, if they said to us tomorrow, which may happen in comics, you never know, we're quartering your page rates, we're giving you nothing at all for this, we will still sit with a pen and we'll do something, And when we're 85 years old, we will still be doodling. Even if nobody's buying it, we'll still be doodling and coming up with ideas.
That's true. It's something that borns with you, and of course you develop it, but as an artist, I cannot see myself a day without just sketch something, or you just feel the itch to do something like that, right? Every single day, even when you're on vacation, or exactly.
Yeah. But that was a good line, isn't it? Somebody said, I can't remember who it was like a famous actor, and somebody said to him, are you going on vacation? And he says, what do I want to go on vacation from? Because he loves his life so much. It's so good what we do that you don't need a break from it as such. So I know when you were at my house, for example, even while we're sitting having a cup of tea at the table, you're sitting doodling Batgirl, and you're making a plan. You were sort of doing a layout for a page on your device, you know. And we can't stop. Like, what's the longest you could go without doing a drawing? What's the longest in your life you could go without doing a drawing?
I couldn't understand it. Kind of.
Like, what's the longest period of time you could go without drawing something?
Like something, like anything, like a quick sketch, or it's hard to say. I don't know. I have no idea. Never really. But lately, I cannot remember a day that I didn't. Maybe when I'm traveling, like even if I go to a convention or something, I always have like a few days visiting a city, or so probably these days I'm not sketching at all. Because I'm interested in other stuff. I'm looking around for new things. But yeah, no longer than 3-4 days, not longer than that, I guess.
Well, one of my friends, like, he's an artist, and he said that his wife would say to him, look, please, on holiday, don't draw anything. You know, we'll do 2 weeks in Spain. Don't draw anything. Just spend time with me and the kids. And he told me that he sneaks to a bathroom with a pad and sits and scribbles things down, you know, where she can't see him, and he's secretly drawing, you know. And that's the way it is, isn't it? We can't remember not doing this, and we never will stop.
Exactly. Yeah. That time we went to Glasgow and we met. You told me that you did economy, right? Economies. Yeah. That's you have like information on that. Graduation on that?
No. I started things and dropped out of things and everything, and my heart was never really in it. Like, I'm really interested in this stuff now. So I'm a big reader of this kind of thing now. But when I was 18, all I wanted to do was comic books. So I would be sitting in lectures, and even at school as well, you know, my mind would always be on superheroes. So I would be drawing Green Lantern or something. While somebody's talking to me about, you know, a macroeconomic policy or something, I'd be doodling a new Green Lantern design or something, you know. So my heart was never really in anything else. But what's interesting, I don't know if you find this, but people who work in fiction as we do, our life is fiction. Like, we sleep 8 hours and we work maybe 10 hours, if you think about it. So the 6 hours of consciousness in the real world for us. And so for us to chill out to fiction is kind of difficult sometimes. So in our chill out time, I find that I read a lot of facts and I watch a lot of factual programs. So I don't know if you're the same. It's very hard to chill out to fiction if it's what you do all day.
Something is kind of freezing here. I couldn't hear
really?
What do you say? Yeah, sometimes connection kind of breaks.
I was saying if you work in fiction, it's very hard to relax to fiction in the evening.
Oh. Yeah, I see.
Yeah, so if we're awake, if you think about it, we're sleeping for 8 hours, we're working for 10 hours, we maybe have 6 hours where we're not in a dreamland, then we have to be in the real world. We have to watch a news program or something.
Right, yeah. This is probably how you develop your creativity too. Even for not people, even for people that doesn't work with that, it's important to, you know, having something to amuse your spirit somehow, right?
Yeah.
Just a moment. Okay, the guys were talking over there. I'm trying to get some questions because they are trying to get some questions from people.
On the Instagram feed, yeah.
Yeah, they are doing something over there. I don't know what they are doing, but so when you're not writing or working, I know you work a lot and you're very productive, but what do you do for pleasure? I mean, how do you enjoy your free time?
I think I tend to kind of want to spend time with you. I realize it's quite small, it's quite narrow because once the kids hit a certain age, they want to hang out with their friends. And it's already, my older daughter is already at the stage where she would rather hang out with her friends than hang out with me. You know, so it's lovely when I get even an afternoon to go to the shops with her or go for a dinner. I treasure it. I love it, you know, because as they get older, they need you a little bit less. And I try and remember this with the, you know, I've got 3 daughters. So the little ones at this stage want to play with me. So I always think, okay, I'll not go and do something myself. I'll hang out with these guys and do something for them. So a lot of kids stuff, you know. Like at the weekends, I take Saturday and Sunday off completely, and I just do stuff with them, you know, whether we go swimming or we go to the park and all that kind of stuff. So just really kind of like normal stuff, you know. I'm not out of my face on drugs or anything like that, you know. I'm living quite a normal life.
But you enjoy some beer.
I'll drink beer once the kids sleep. They don't see how much I'm drinking, which is great. So like they nod off about 8 o'clock, and then I can sneak off to the pub. So I've got little drinking clubs. You know, so I've got like school pals, the guys I hang out with at school. Then I've got neighbours who I drink with. And then I've got various school groups as well, you know, like from the school dads and things. So I've got about 6 drinking clubs. And I try and see those guys a couple of times a month. So there's maybe at least 12 nights out where I'm out drinking. That sounds like a lot when you say it like this, but there's maybe 12 nights out where I'm having a good
you're Scottish. Probably not a lot for Scottish.
Yeah, well, that's me on a diet. That's me on a diet.
Yeah, we drank very, very well. That's for sure.
We go and see it.
Could you hear me okay? Yeah, okay.
Oh, sorry, Rafa. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah. Right now, I can hear you okay now, but sometimes it just freezes. But it's okay.
Cool. Yeah, the cinema's a big one. I'm really missing the cinema because my wife and I would go a couple of times a week. So we would go together once, and then we take the kids once a week as well. So it's kind of weird, you know, we're watching TV and it seems kind of lame compared to the cinema. Like we've got a little cheap $200 TV. We don't even have a cool TV. So like I'm thinking of maybe investing in a slightly bigger television now.
That's interesting. I remember that that maybe years ago, I don't really know when, but you organized, I think when we were in Glasgow, you were at the time organizing a small festival, a small comic festival in your hometown maybe, or your neighborhood, something like that. It's still happening. You used to organize a big festival in London 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
How's this? How is that for you? I mean, how is organizing these events, and how was organized that big show back in the day? How is leaving the place of a creator and become like the organizer and trying to put all those things together?
Well, do you know, if it was down to me, it would be a complete catastrophe, you know, so I would never be able to do it. Like, you know what it's like, creative people, our mind is on work. But the beautiful thing is my wife is incredibly organized. You know, she's great. And she organized the big London Chris Hemsworth with Tom Hiddleston. It's got with like the most amazing lineup of people. You know, so many big Marvel and DC guests like Scott Snyder, Joe Quesada. It was just really fun. And I think I lost a fair amount of money on it. I can't remember how much I lost, but I lost a fair amount of money. But I just wanted to do it for the fun of it, to do like a really cool convention and have that experience. But the thing I do in my hometown is different. Like whenever we sold the company in 2017, we ended up with a lot more money than we ever expected, obviously, you know, and we thought, well, what's good things to do with your cash? You know, there's 2 things. You can either become a guy that buys an expensive car, you know, and wears like designer suits all the time and everything, or you can actually do something kind of useful with it. And I've always been obsessed with the idea of reinvigorating my hometown, like where I grew up. And I mean, I loved growing up there. I've got such great memories of it and fantastic people and everything. And I always think it's a bit weird, you know, to disappear off to Hollywood. And then it's like people see you in the newspapers and everything, you know, and I never wanted to be that guy. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool to maybe organize 6 big events a year and then fund them? So, you know, we do maybe a small token £1 or £2 entry into something, and then that money goes to a local charity. And then what Lucy and I do is we maybe fund an event. So we spent whatever £30,000 or something on an event that we could only make £200 from, which we gave into the local church, which was a comic convention in my old school, and that was fantastic. That was one of my favourite days of my life. You know, that was more exciting than buying a Bentley or something with the cash, like putting the money into my old school, because I was there for 7 years, and to look out on the playground and see a giant 100 and the Batmobile and the car from Back to the Future and everything. It was awesome. Oh, did we cut out?
Yeah, it froze.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, it was so awesome to actually see a place I knew so well actually covered in comic book stuff. It really made it really exciting. And I flew some guys in from Marvel, and I got actors in from TV programs. And it was only open to local people. So if you weren't somebody from my neighborhood, you couldn't get a ticket to come to this. So it was really fun. Like, stuff like that never happens in Scotland. You know, but the same, like Brazil, when you were growing up, there wasn't that much in the way of cool conventions and things going. There is now. There's amazing ones now. But my neighborhood growing up, I was the only guy reading comics, you know. Whereas now all the kids love this stuff. So we had a big costume party and all this kind of thing. It was awesome, you know. So my plan is to do things like that, and movie premieres and big free Christmas dinners for people. And we did a Santa Claus thing last year and the year before, where every kid in the town got a free present. And we got a horse and cart with Santa on a horse and cart driving around the town and giving free presents to all the kids. So just crazy stuff, you know, but great fun. I love it.
There's a really nice social side of it too, and doing that in your community and the place you came from is really cool.
I always think, you know, like online, like people will retweet something, and I always think, that's not, you're not doing any good retweeting something, you know, or saying this or whatever, you know, or liking something or whatever. I think nobody really feels the benefit, but there's a weird virtue that's going on that I think is virtueless, you know. So I think you've got to do stuff in your real life, you know. So I don't really care about a lot of stuff online and everything, you know. I like to focus on the real world and real people.
Right. You started your. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you started your career doing, at least the first time I saw your work was in Marvel. I think you were doing Thor or something, maybe Avengers, something like that.
No. The very first thing I did was a black and white indie comic when I was 18. And it was I called it a sequel to the Bible. My rationale was that the Bible sold lots of copies. So if I did this, I could maybe get some of those readers to come over. So I did this kind of sequel to the Bible. And it sold pretty well. It sold about 10,000 copies or something. It did pretty good.
Yeah. That was my comic. I remember, maybe I'm wrong, but I remember seeing some Thor. Maybe, well, I don't know. But I remember seeing you did a lot of work at Marvel. When I was reading Marvel at the time, I was like super hooked up, and stuff at DC too. So with Red Sun, that is a fantastic comic, still one of my favorite stories. You did Ultimates for Marvel, which is amazing too. You did a whole lot of really seminal things for these publishers. But when you're in the top in these publishers, you're like the top writers of Marvel. You just decided to go full-time creator own. That was a really bold move.
It was crazy.
Yeah. And now it feels like, I mean, of course, we had creator own with Image. We had some authors that were very popular already, but you created like the biggest case of creator-owned properties. Let's just say that you created the Millar Award, that was just pretty much some of the best artists in the industry with your script, and they were a huge success being indie.
Yeah.
I think my question is, what led you to make this bold move and leave the comfort of Marvel and DC and try this whole different thing? And well, I think that's it.
Well, it's a really good question, because I've never really looked back. Like, I never look back. I always think about what I'm doing next. I always think it's quite unhealthy to look back, you know, and you kind of think, oh, how should I have done this differently? Or worse, to think, didn't I do that very well? So like I tend never to reflect, But it's a question I've been asked recently a couple of times. And it's only when I think back to that period how insane it actually was in terms of a risk, because I was getting paid a fortune at Marvel. I was getting really good money at Marvel. Like, I started small. I took a pay cut when I went to Marvel because Marvel was just coming out of bankruptcy. So I was doing the authority at DC, and I was getting $150 a page at DC. And then Marvel offered me $90 a page to come over, and which seems insane, but it was just so exciting to go to Marvel because Joe had just become editor-in-chief. Bill Jamis was in there, and they were starting the Ultimate line, and they said, look, we're restarting Marvel Comics. You want in on this? And I did a calculation. I thought, well, I'm not having a great time at DC. Like, I wasn't really temperamentally suited to it. It's more of a corporate culture, whereas I think I'm a bit more of a cowboy. I'm a little bit more fly-by-night and risk-taking, whereas DC culturally back then was very risk-averse. Mm-hmm. So I did a calculation and thought, well, the royalties will probably be good on this, and I believe in Joe, and I think this is going to be good. So I jumped over to Marvel, and it turned out great. And very quickly, I think my page rate went up to 11 times what it was originally. Like they put me on this super page rate eventually. So maybe 6 or 7 years later, they were paying me like $1,000 a page or something. It was nuts, And then at the peak of that, I'd been talking to Stan Lee, and I was talking to Jimmy Palmiotti, and they both said the same thing to me. They said, you'll be eventually replaced at Marvel. And they said it in a really nice way. They weren't being mean or anything, but they were saying, you should really think about doing your own stuff. And I was like, why? Because all I'd ever wanted to do was do DC characters and maybe some Marvel characters too. And they said, yeah, but you'll just be part of the machine, and they will move on eventually with someone else. It happens to absolutely everyone. And they said the guys who are remembered are the guys who put something into the industry. Like, you remember Siegel and Schuster, you remember Jack Kirby, you remember Steve Ditko. And they said you should create your own thing. And Stan said to me, he said, you've got quite an unusual talent. He says, what you do is you're very good at creating a new world and a new character. And I was like, how do you mean? They said, well, if you look at the Ultimates, he said it's kind of a bit of a reinvention. You're sort of starting from scratch. The Ultimate line, he says, in your Superman book, he said that wasn't really a standard Superman book. You created a world. And it was really interesting because Stan, remember, was a brilliant editor as well as a brilliant writer. So Stan said, you should give this a try. And Jimmy had said to me actually before Stan. So I went off and I did Wanted. And I remember handwriting out my idea for it. And then within a few months, we had the movie rights sold and everything. It was Hollywood actually came to us looking for the movie rights. And I thought it was a joke. I couldn't believe it, So so I had this little parallel career going where I did Wanted, American Jesus, and these things were doing okay and making some good money. And eventually it got to the point, where I thought, right, if Marvel offered me a really good deal. The Wanted movie had just come out, and Marvel said to me, look, we'll give you $1 million as a gift. We'll give you $1 million now. And they showed me the check. They said, we'll send you this if you stay on at Marvel and sign up with us for 3 more years. And this was in 2008 or something, 2009, round about then. And I had Kick-Ass that I was working on at the time. And I'd been meaning to write Kick-Ass for a couple of years, but just didn't have time because I was too busy doing Civil War and then Old Man Logan and all these things. And I realized that every new Marvel project I took on was pushing back my creator-owned work more and more. And I knew that I was in my 30s at the time, and I thought, I'm going to be in my 40s, and I'm still going to be doing this Marvel stuff. I'm never going to write these books that I've been planning to write. So I said, no, I'm going to turn it down. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, because I remember I had a huge tax bill at the time and I had all these things that I had to pay. I didn't have a huge amount of cash. And they offered me $1 million, and I was like, no, I'm going to go. And they said to me, are you sure? Because creator owns means you might never get the money because it might not sell. And it might, by the time it comes out, it takes 6 months for the creator owned money to be counted up by the company and everything. They said, you're going to be a year without any income. Are you sure? And I was like, because they're friends of mine, the guys. And I was like, it's really tempting, but I'm going to turn it down. And it was the weirdest thing. I turned down the $1 million and went off and focused on Millar instead. So I cracked all my Kick-Ass and all those things. And it's obviously the best thing I ever did, but everybody said to me I was insane.
That's a fantastic story. I didn't know that one. There is any kind of not tip, but like a recommendation that you could tell for people who are in between these two possibilities, like doing company job or doing their creator-owned stuff? I know you have a very successful path, well, doing both, but specifically doing your own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But not everybody have this kind of success. There is like a kind of way, there is a way to balance these two things, and do you think that could be positive, like doing company work at the same time you're developing your own stuff inside, and try to switch these things once in a while? Or you think you just have to focus in one thing and go for it?
I think you have to know who you are. Like, as a creator, I think that's the biggest thing you can do, is to figure out what you are and what you do and what people like from you.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone is a creator-owned guy. And there's creator-owned guys who are brilliant, who are terrible in company-owned characters, who are brilliant creator-owned guys, but you put them on a Marvel or a DC character and it's a mess. You know, we've seen that. And so I think you have to figure out who you are and what you enjoy, but also what an audience wants from you too. So not everyone's a natural creator. It's actually quite rare to be good at creating characters, because if you think about it, DC has largely existed on the characters that were created between 1938 and 1943. Like 90% of DC's successful characters were created then. And I know there's modern incarnations of them, you know, like a Silver Age Green Lantern or a Modern Age Green Lantern, but they're essentially an extension of an idea that was created 80 years ago. So DC had a window of about 5 years where the bulk of the universe was created. Certainly the good stuff. And there's a few outliers from there. You know, there's John Constantine, Firestorm, Power Girl. You know, there's a few things outside of that. But the Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, all that stuff was very early on. Marvel, likewise. Marvel, you're talking early 60s. There was about a 5-year window where that stuff was created. So it's Jerry Conway created Punisher, Len Wein created Wolverine. You know, so there's a few brilliant stuff that emerged, but generally, again, it's rare. So, and these companies' massive histories, you have to take that into account and think it's maybe not for you. You know, you might not be a creator-owned guy, but you might want the money, or you might want the movie deals, and you might want the recognition. But you have to figure out, is this what you're good at? And sometimes people are better at doing other people's characters. Like some of my favorite writers are better at doing other people's characters, and they slightly flounder when they go off and do their own thing. So I think that's my advice, is to look at yourself and think, look, be honest, look at the reviews. What do people like from me? And then you know, focus on that stuff, because sometimes your audience knows you better than you do. Mm-hmm. And I've seen guys who've tried for years to try and get something going, and it doesn't click, and they're not really doing what they're best at sometimes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think some people are asking, how are the... hold on, I need to do like this switch between Portuguese and English. But
Sim.
How's this? How involved are you in the production of these Netflix new properties you're developing, like Magic Order and Jupiter's Legacy? How are you? How much of it are you involved on the production, not just the comics, but on the like the shooting side of the?
Well, that's a big part of the job. You know, whenever something's shooting, you tend to leave it to the director. But what my job will involve as an executive in at Netflix has been part of the decision of who gets approached to be a director. You know, we talk to these guys ahead of time, and like to look at the scripts and think, okay, this is working, this isn't working, and be part of the script development process as well. And then to watch edits of something and think, okay, is there stuff here that can be tightened up? You know, and I mean, it's the same as when I was working with Matthew on The Kingsman and Kick-Ass and everything. It was similar then as well, you know, but even more so now. Now it's very much an everyday conversation. Like before I did this call with you today, I was onto Netflix for an hour, and we were running through talking over 2 scenes in one of the television shows. And so it's very, very much a producer thing now, whereas before it was almost like fun. I would head down and see Matthew whenever the Kingsman movies had been made. I'd go down every Wednesday and watch a new cut of the film and give some notes, I did the same with Kick-Ass. Whereas this is much more like from the beginning to the end, like just being part of the team. But I love it. I mean, I love movies, I love TV, and I love comic books, so I'm absolutely in my elements, correct?
Now I have some live comments here, finally. Hey Mark, what subject would you like to talk about in comics one day that you still haven't explored? Fernando Rodriguez is asking.
I've always got a plan, for like 10 things. Like I come up with about 7 things a year, and but I have 20 in my head, and I fine tune them. Like Kick-Ass, for example. I started thinking about Kick-Ass 5 years before I got into Kick-Ass. So you're always kind of exploring things, and then it might end up nothing like what you had in mind. You must experience this as well, where you maybe jot down a few scenes and you think, yeah, that's going to go in this book I have in mind, and then that ends up in a book 5 years later. It ends up something else entirely. That character. So there's always something. I think that's when you keel over and die, when you stop having all your plans. There's, for every book I write, there's 10 that I want to write.
Right. Speaking of Kick-Ass, Kick-Ass, I don't know, but probably it's your most successful franchise, creator-owned franchise. It's you have 2 very cool movies. The comics, you have done a lot, and the collaboration with John Romita. Yeah. Now, recently, you guys got back on publishing with other creators. I'm part of it. How's being handing your creations to other creators and see their points of view? How are you dealing with that as the creator of it?
I do feel a bit funny about it, actually. Like I don't always enjoy it. Like it was one of those things where I planned to do them all myself, but then I sold the company. So like it meant that I was working somewhere else, so I couldn't work on Kick-Ass or Kingsman anymore. So I just got the best people I could find and got them working on it, like yourself, Kevin Smith, Eduardo Risso, and Jeff Lemire and everybody. So it was all great people, but it's a little bit frustrating. It's a bit like having a child and then seeing someone else raise your child. And it's like Jor-El giving Superman over to the Kents. Jor-El would be thinking, I wanted you to be a scientist on Krypton,
Hey Mark, were you involved in any of Jupiter's Legacy adaptation? We have done this question. Okay, I think. Hope you can come to Brazil to meet your fans someday. He was asking about the adaptation of Jupiter's Legacy. But
yes, I watch it every week. There's a new edit every week, and new special effects get added every week. And I give my notes once a week on this. Like there's 8 episodes, and my wife and I watch all 8 episodes every week, which is really fun. My sister-in-law's actually seen them now too. She's staying with us through the pandemic, so we all sit and we watch Jupiter's Legacy every week.
The first season is complete already.
Yeah, but it still has to have a lot of special effects. It's a very effects-heavy show because it's a big superhero thing, So it's super ambitious. I mean, it's more expensive than the Marvel shows or anything like that. So it's got a lot of flying, a lot of people getting knocked through walls, mysterious islands. Half the show is set in the 1920s and everything. So there's so much stuff that has to be added to it. It's not like shooting Daredevil or something, which is so much easier.
I'm excited about it. Just curiosity about the production, how long it takes to get like a season like that done? How long it takes to get done?
It started shooting late summer last year, at the very end of summer, and it was all done by New Year. So all the shooting had been done by New Year. Then there's the editing now, and then there's the special effects being added onto that. So we haven't announced the official date yet, but it's just a typical length of time. And I mean, usually these things, from the minute it's shooting to appearing, about 18 months or something.
18 months. Yeah,
usually. So season 2 of something usually is about 15 to 18 months after season 1.
because you already have like the suits and some of the prediction part, it's done already. That's why.
Yeah, and there was a lot of suits. I mean, this show has got 6 principal superheroes, like 6 principals set in the 20s. You know, the ones who go to the island and become the first superheroes. But then there's their children, and then there's supervillains and everything. So the costume budget for this was insane. You know, there's that more than Avengers in terms of the number of characters who are dressed in a costume and everything. So it's going to look pretty ambitious. I don't think there's never been anything done at this kind of level before, which is really exciting. Like, television shows tend to be less ambitious than cinema in terms of superheroes, but this feels more. This feels like Game of Thrones or something. It feels like a big, very grand superhero opera. Yeah.
Awesome. And what else from Millar World is like green lighted to become a movie or a TV show or animation, whatever?
I'll give you the order where everything is right now. You know, COVID's a little bit annoying. It's a lot annoying, but we should be shooting some things, but because the world's production is all closed down, we have to wait until we're allowed to start shooting things again. But people are coming up with quite clever ways to get around this. You know, like there's talk of isolating a lot of bases to actually shoot and live on the set. So people will maybe live in caravans or something or hotels nearby and live in quarantine so they can actually all make shows and movies together. Tom Cruise is doing that with the new Mission Impossible. He's doing a big closed set for, I think, really soon, I think September. But our next thing, like Jupiter's is finished. Our next thing to go should have been American Jesus, which was being filmed down in Mexico. 2 friends of mine, Leopoldo and Everardo Gout, who are absolute geniuses. They did Molly's Game, a great movie. They have written all of this. They're just ready to start shooting, and then suddenly, oh, great, you know, so everything had to close down. Sharky the Bounty Hunter is ready to roll now. The screenplay's in for this. We've got Prodigy is an amazing screenplay, absolutely amazing screenplay. Still to get a director on that one, but we're just ready. As soon as the world opens up again, we can get going. Huck, as you know, the Huck screenplay's in. Ted Melfi just ready to start directing, but we have to wait for the world to open up again. And Empress has been written at the moment. The first screenplay for that didn't quite work out, so there's a new writer in sort of doing a new draft of that. There's one other one. Oh, Space Bandits has been written just now as well. It's just started. So by the time everything will be shooting again later in the year, early next year, and we'll basically be doing about 5 or 6 things all at once. Oh, Magic Order as well. Magic Order with James Wan. That'll be, again, the end of the year. So there's going to be like what should have been coming out in 2021 will probably be coming out much later in the year or early 2022, which is a little bit annoying, but at the same time, it gives everybody a chance to get the screenplays absolutely perfect. Because my philosophy, as I've found in life, if you have a bad script, you have a bad movie, so you need to, if you can have another few months to get that script perfect, that's a good thing.
Right. And the pandemic, but there are some aspects of the prediction that can still go on with the pandemics, right? Like, for example, the script and pre-production, something still keeps moving in this time, right?
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. Like the new Kingsman movie is coming out in September, and they finished shooting that before the pandemic, obviously. So that's just been in edits and getting music added and everything. So, and Jupiter's hasn't been affected really because we've got like just the effects work being added on. So it's really interesting. Like a movie or a television show is approximately an 18-month process, but there's only maybe 12 to 14 weeks usually in terms of cinema. A little bit longer for a TV show, where people are on stages. The rest of the time, it's actually done in like bedrooms. It's done in offices and bedrooms and everything. So weirdly unaffected. It's just that little bit in the middle where they're shooting the thing that's affected here.
Right. Let me see if I have more questions here. When can you read them? Can you see the questions on the screen or no?
I would think you have.
When he will publish his autobiography, I will kink shame your cat for free. Question for me Is this like an internal joke or something?
At the back of every one of my books, I always end my bio with his upcoming autobiography, and then I have a different title for it every time. And one a couple of years ago was "I will kink shame your cat for free." You know, so can I kink shame my own cat? Can I kink shame my own cat? About 6 months ago, I was doing a pee, like in the morning. I was urinating. I went into the bathroom and I was half asleep, 6 o'clock in the morning or something, just getting up for breakfast. And I was peeing, and the cat jumped in front of the urine stream. So the cat literally ran and jumped in front of the urine stream, and my cat get hit by urine. And I was like, ah, you know, and the cat was, I don't know what it was just excited that run and jumped in front of the urine stream. I think it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and the cat was soaking in urine, you know. And I'm actually now wondering.
He was like a laser or something, and he had to catch it.
It looked like a bodyguard taking a bullet for a president. He just jumped in front of the urine stream and get hit by it, you know. But maybe the cat's into it. I don't know. Maybe the cat's into this. But like, I'll kink shame my own cat.
My dogs do that. I have 2 dogs, and when I go out with them,
yeah,
eventually one of them pee on the other, and it's like, and it's always after the bath, like 1 or 2 days after they're all clean, smelling great. That happens. So I have to fix it and wash them. They're so.
Is this your excuse when you come home to your girlfriend and she says, "Why is the dog covered in urine?" and you pretend it's the other dog? I'm just putting that out
there. Maybe I just want to expose myself that much. People here are asking if you have like how's your writing process, and if you have like tips for aspiring writers.
I think my big thing I would say is to finish it. There's so many half-written screenplays, half-written comic books. Like all my childhood, I would draw half a story. I would never finish a story. I would always just draw half a story. But nobody ever buys half a story or half a script, or you know, you would never sell half a page of art. So always finish it, and never take too long as well. I take a little while to do things, but you should never be writing something for a year or 2 years. You know, you're wasting time. You should just get it done. If you're writing a screenplay, it shouldn't take more than 3 months. If you're writing a book, it shouldn't take more than 8 months, maybe, you know. If you're writing a comic book, no more than 2 weeks. So I think get it done. Worry about whether it's good or not once you've finished it. My other big tip, I think, is to make it visual. If you're doing comics in particular, to actually think, not what would be a cool conversation, just think, what would be cool for the artist to draw? Like, come in with the most exciting visuals you can possibly imagine, build up to something even better, and then end on an image like they have never drawn before. Because comics is a visual medium. And I always think, I don't know if you find this with scripts from other people sometimes, a lot of boring talking head scenes, and people are writing radio plays instead of comic books.
Yeah, I like when we have like both moments, not talking heads, but I mean, I understand that. I think I like when a comic prepare you for a big moment, and then you have like that big splash with everything. But I also like the pacing of it, right? And how it's, you need a bit of everything. When you have like explosion after explosion after explosion, kind of miss the point, right? But you have one big explosion in the book that's like a big impact.
It's like a song, isn't it, or whatever? You know, it's got to have a rhythm to it, and then there's an exciting moment and so on. But you've got to always remember the exciting moment, and I think always just remember that somebody's drawing this. So what I tend to do is I draw it out myself, just very loose kind of drawings, and think, is this visually interesting enough to make me turn the page and see something else?
Right.
I think Denny O'Neil used to always say, try and start with a splash page with an image that pulls you in, with something that's almost like a headline. And I always think that's pretty good advice as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. You, since the creation of Millar World, have you ever done, after starting doing the Millar World projects and your creator own stuff, have you ever done any other company gig, or like I'm probably not clear. After the creation of Millar World, have you ever done any other company gig like for Marvel and DC, or
no? When I left, I left. But sometimes it is tempting. Not just now. I can't because I'm on staff for a few years at Netflix. So most of this decade, I'll be at Netflix. So I'm exclusive to Netflix for that stuff. But I'm still a fan. I mean, I'm a huge fanboy. So I come up with ideas all. I have talked about doing something at some point, like a DC project, and I do get asked by my friends at Marvel and my friends at DC. They will phone me up sometimes, and especially before I went to Netflix, when I was just doing creator on the image, I was able to do Superman or Spider-Man or anything I wanted, and they would say to me, "Listen, would you come back and maybe do a special project?" Or the way Frank Miller does, come in and do something cool. And it's tempting sometimes, but I knew I had to create these franchises and build that universe, and that's my passion for the next few years. Just to solidify this. So I want to do Empress 2 with Stuart Immonen. I want to do Huck 2 with you. I want to do more Magic Order with Olivier and everything. So I want to build up a catalogue and a library. For these characters, a mythology for everyone. And then once that's done, I feel I could then go and do. I've got a great Superman idea. Like I've got a really good Superman idea. I love your Batman idea, which I think is awesome. I'd love Frank Whiteley and I to go and do a 4-issue Green Lantern project and make it the best Green Lantern you've ever seen. So I feel I've kind of done the Marvel stuff. There's not a huge amount I really feel is left to do at Marvel. I've done the X-Men, the Avengers, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Fantastic Four. I've done all the good ones really. But wouldn't it be cool? I love the idea of doing a little series of books at some point with the best artists in the world, and I do one Batman, a definitive Aquaman story. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing that somebody who you could never imagine drawing Aquaman, but working with them for 6 issues, like Greg Tacchini or somebody like that, drawing Aquaman would be incredible. So like
project. Yeah. It's freezing.
Oh, what's that?
No,
you cut out, Rafa.
It froze a little bit. I say that creating like a little bit like those all-star Superman or all-star Batman, all-star whatever DC did back in the day. I would love to see something like that, but written by you and collaborating with very different and specific artists to define that character for like a new generation or something.
Yeah, I think Civil War is Marvel's best-selling ever graphic novel, and I think it's because you can pick it up and read it and it kind of makes sense. It's a very simple idea and you just get it. And Wolverine's Wolverine Old Man Logan is the #2 bestseller. And again, I think it's because it's a bit of an evergreen. You can just pick it up and anyone can understand it. And I think that's the formula. I think to do a Batman or a Aquaman or a Flash or something that's just self-contained, you don't ever have to have read these comics before, and try and make it the best possible story you can. And I'd love a little run of them with different artists, each one playing to their strength. Guys like Rafa Grampa and all that, just really brilliant guys who you would never in a million years expect to be drawing a Flash story or something. How awesome would that be to have on your shelf?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. People are asking, what do you think about digital comics and these different new platforms like Comixology, and how do you feel about comics that are created specifically for this platform, and how do you think they will reach new audiences or no?
I'm fascinated by it because I was worried about digital comics at the beginning. When it first appeared in 2010, I thought this can't be good for retailers. But what's fascinating is that it didn't eat into retail at all. What it did was people who didn't live near a comic store suddenly had access to comic books. And places like my friends in Malaysia who'll pay $15 for a DC or a Marvel comic because of the import costs. But if they buy it digital, they've got it for $3 or $4, which is awesome, So I can really now understand the value of digital comics. I think it's 100% the future. But I don't think one will necessarily replace the other. I've got a very holistic approach to it. So what I think, we're entering right now, in this second, we're entering the biggest change comics I think is ever going to experience. I think that the industry is going to seismically change. Like from 1940 to 1980, you kind of had the newsstand selling Marvel, the DC books, you know, and then 1980 to 2020, 40 years later, you had the direct market. And I do think we're about to have an upheaval on the scale of what we had back in the day, you know, when newsstand changed.
Right.
But I think nobody quite knows where it's going yet. But I do think that it's going to be a multitude of things. I think one of the ththings will be digital, definitely. But I think digital is just really overpriced. You know, I think to pay the same price as print is ridiculous, you know, because you're essentially buying a PDF. So I've always been quite resistant to digital. I think, well, I'm just going to buy a paper copy and have it on my shelf instead of downloading something for the same cost. It's expensive, a digital comic. That feels weird. But I do think that print is still going to have it's going to have a relationship always with readers. Retailers are passionate and they'll find new ways of selling print to people. But I think that the shape of the industry is going to change enormously. I think Marvel and DC are going to cut back their books. I do suspect that's the next thing that's going to happen post-COVID. I think there's going to be a cult of books, and that's going to impact retailers. I think that just the fact that there's less comics out there, there's going to be less retail outlets. Like when I first started in comics, really just 20 years ago, there was 3,500 comic stores in the States. Now there's 2,000. And I think it's going to go down considerably. I think it's going to go down a lot over the next few months. I don't even think it will be in the next few weeks. I think it will be towards the end of the year. I think there's going to be a contagion because I think that the Marvel, DC, and the independents are going to have a bit of a collapse, and that's going to be impacting the comic stores too. But I think what grows out of that is going to be a leaner Marvel and a leaner DC and a very strong independent scene, and they'll use everything going. I'm reading a book just now about post-war Germany and Japan by an economist called Mancur Olson. It was from 1982. And he said, this is what I always think in dark times, this is what I always say to all my friends who work in the industry, is that even when things look really bad, sometimes something great can come of this, so just stick with it and hold out. Which is Germany was annihilated in 1945 and Japan was decimated too, you know, but they were the big post-war success stories. And there was a lot of reasons for that economically. But one of the things was all the old infrastructures were completely collapsed. So they had to build something new that worked for the contemporary environment. And I think that's really interesting because I think that's what's going to happen in comics. I think the model that we had maybe wasn't working so well too. So what we build out of this for retail, for digital, all these things that's going to work, we're going to have to rethink everything to make comics a success. But there's something very interesting about the comic book personality. Like people who work in comics tend to be quite smart. And we're certainly creative, and we tend to be good at solving problems. Every superhero story is someone solving a problem. So I think we're going to look at this and we're going to figure a way out of it. And I think it'll be a tough 6 months, but on the other side of it, we could be entering a new golden age because every comic book bust is followed by a comic book boom. You know, the 40s, huge, 50s collapse, 60s boom, 70s collapse. You know, so it tends to work roughly every decade that comics go through a tough period and then they go through a good period. And that's the one light at the end of all of this.
Right. Following this answer, Alex is asking if there is something in comics or movies that you saw recently and you felt that was really cool and original, something that caught your attention. But I'd like to push that for comics. There's any particular comics that you saw that kind of stood out for you?
I love Isola. You know Isola, the book that Carol Kerschel and Brendan Fletcher did?
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. And the colouring in that book, I could almost eat the colours in that book. The colouring is beautiful, isn't it? It's so good. You know, I read a lot of stuff. I read really varied stuff now. When I was a kid, I used to just read something that had Superman on the front of it. I would never read anything that didn't have Superman. Whereas now it's the artwork. I'm caught by the art, you know. So like I check out a really wide range of things. Isola was the last one that really blew me away. I thought this is something that I've never seen before. This artwork is like special, and I really like the story. It's slow and methodical and beautiful. You know, it's a great book. And I love the obvious stuff as well. You know, like Brian K. Vaughan stuff. You know, I love Garth Ennis. You know, I tend to follow writers and artists more than characters now. I think that's the difference between being a child and an adult, isn't it? As an adult, you tend to follow the creators because you know that Batman can be lame in the wrong hands. Batman can just be rubbish, but in the right hands, he's fantastic. So last great Batman I read actually was The Gold Child. I thought that was amazing. It was absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
All right.
Last great movie I saw was Hidden Gems. The Adam Sandler movie Hidden Gems. I love. Absolutely awesome. But the last movie I saw in a cinema because of COVID, the last movie I saw in a cinema was Sonic the Hedgehog. You know the Jim Carrey movie, Sonic the Hedgehog? Sonic the Hedgehog? You haven't seen Sonic the Hedgehog? All right. Yeah, so that was the last movie I saw.
I've never heard of it, but maybe another name, because when they come to Brazil, they translate the names for something that not necessarily are the correct translation.
Did you never play the Sega game Sonic? Sonic when you were a kid?
Sonic. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. There was a Sonic movie with Jim Carrey, and that was the last movie I saw in a cinema. And somebody said it'll probably win the Oscars this year because there's been nothing else released.
Right.
So Sonic's going to win the Oscar.
Exactly. Mark, thank you very much. This is gonna. We were saying that we do an amazing job. Thank you. Yeah, Sonic. So I would like to thank you. Our time is about to wrap. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm sorry for all the complications on getting this.
It made it more exciting. It made it all the more exciting.
Yeah, exactly. We just created tension. It was all planned. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy your. I hope everyone. I hope Scotland is doing like better with the COVID things, and you guys can go out as soon as possible. We are probably staying a bit longer here.
Yeah. We've had 3 days where nobody's died in 3 days, which is great. You know, that's nobody in the whole country for 3 days has died, so everyone's pleased about this. You know,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
And the pubs reopen again in 9 days. 9 days time, the pubs reopen, which I'm very excited about as well.
Yeah, we are probably going to open back in December, but let's hope it's earlier.
Well, you and I you come to Scotland for a break this year, but that's obviously held up now. But next time I see you, we'll be on the set in Huck. We'll be on the movie set for Huck, which will be exciting.
Yeah. I can't wait to go. I couldn't hear everything because it froze a little bit, but yeah, that will be fun. I can't wait to. Actually, I can't wait to go out and travel a bit because this pandemic is kind of driving me crazy.
Yeah.
I hope that we can hang out soon, and I can't wait to go to Scotland again and have a drink with you.
Great. I'll look forward to it, Rafa. I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, man.
All the best, pal. See you then.
Bye. Valeu, galera, por participar aí. Deu trabalho, a gente não conseguiu fazer a live pelo Instagram, deu um problema ali com a conta, não rolou, mas agradeço todo mundo aí por ter entendido e o pessoal que conseguiu migrar e assistir aqui por esse programa aqui que é o nosso StreamYard. Então tá, valeu, galera. Até a próxima. Um abração.